April 20th BPAC Commission meeting. I think the first item is we will do the introductions, and we have, I feel like we haven't, I mean, I guess we haven't met off and on with weather and other, and winter break and everything, so we have a few new people, new members, so if you could just do a kind of a brief introduction, and then we'll just do go around. So I'm Joe Caruso. I am the current chair.
Hi, I'm Brittany Bryan. I am on the policy committee.
I am Anjuja Sway. I am new.
Brandon Tucker. I'm also new.
Bob Edgerton, Parks Board.
Michael Dunn, Planning Committee.
Celeste Bravo Taylor, Planning Committee.
William Smith, Outreach Committee, Vice Chair.
Barbara Godwin, Transportation Staff. And could we have everyone use the mics so that the audio picks it up because we're recording? Sorry, just quick housekeeping.
And Will Shoemaker, Transportation Staff.
Okay, 1 second, I'm getting the virtual agenda pulled up here. So first item is the approval of the previous minutes from last month, March 16. Give everyone a second to review. They should be stapled here, I would think. And then I'll ask for a motion to approve.
Move to approve the minutes as presented.
A second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve the March minutes. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next item is public comment. I don't see anybody here for public comment, so we'll move on to staff presentations. First one is the ADA transition plan update.
All right. Well, good evening. I hope everybody is doing well. My name is Ben Griffin. Work for the City of Raleigh in the Department of Transportation, and I lead our street maintenance group, the Street Maintenance Division Manager. Currently oversee the typical things that you would see in street maintenance, which is asphalt and concrete maintenance. But I also lead our inspections team, project management team, and a right-of-way compliance team. So this focus falls on my project management team that does a lot of the asset management for the city's street and sidewalk assets. And so just a little context on why this is housed within street maintenance. So with that, we'll get started. Just a quick agenda. We'll go through just a couple introductions. I do want to acknowledge some key staff members that have been a part of this process to this point and continue to be a part of this process. I'll give some information about our ADA self-evaluation and transition plan and what that looks like. I'll give the group an overview of some of our findings when we actually went out and did the surveys on our sidewalks, curb ramps. What is it that the city has that's actually out there? I've got a few things that I'll walk through that came out as part of our public survey, which was live in the mid-December to mid-January timeframe. And then we'll talk about some next steps and have an opportunity for questions. So once again, I'm Ben Griffin, Street Maintenance Division Manager, and kind of the lead for this project as it relates to public right-of-way assets, sidewalks, and curb ramps. I do want to acknowledge the city's ADA coordinator. Christina Bowman has been a tremendous help as we have walked through this process. Christina is responsible for ultimately all the ADA programs that the city has, public right-of-way, sidewalks, things like that, only being a part of it. And so Christina has been a big help throughout, especially with the public meeting. I do just want to acknowledge her involvement. And Rob Murray, our communications analyst within the Department of Transportation, helped us tremendously in putting together the public outreach and the survey, so want to acknowledge him as well. A couple of folks from our consultant team. The city contracted with Cole & Associates, which is a consultant out of St. Louis, Missouri. We contracted with them in around January of 2025 just to look at development of this plan, incorporation of all the data, how do we analyze the data. And so I want to acknowledge Steve Hens and Nick DeYoung from Cole & Associates. They're nationally recognized for ADA work, ADA transition planning, most notably with TxDOT and Oregon DOT. So they are very well known in this industry, and just want to acknowledge them and all the work that they have done for us as well. So jumping into kind of the meat of the ADA self-evaluation and public right-of-way purpose. Why do we self-evaluate? So one of the things that we constantly want to do is evaluate our policies, our programs, services, things that serve the community in a way that is beneficial for those that may have disabilities. And so one of the key elements that falls under my team's purview is item number 4 there, which is pedestrian access. And that includes sidewalks, curb ramps, transit stops, accessible traffic signals, all the things that are incorporated into the transportation network. And our primary purpose is to identify those barriers which would otherwise prevent somebody who is trying to get from point A to point B from getting there safely. So what is a transition plan? Quite simply, a transition plan is an action plan. It identifies a responsible party. In this case, that's the city of Raleigh. We have a prioritized schedule to remove barriers that are part of our system. We'll talk a little bit later about prioritization and some of the steps we have taken to prioritize the data, and an estimated cost to remove those barriers, because as with any municipal budget, we have to understand what those costs are so that we can properly allocate funding. And
It may flicker, but it'll come back.
okay. There we go. All right. So there's a few different things that kind of form the basis for any transition plan. And first, we have to look at legislation. The first piece of legislation that we look at is the Architectural Barriers Act. This was sort of the kickoff of legislation that started to lay the groundwork for accessibility. The next piece that we look at is the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. Again, we're starting to address accessibility within federal projects and federal facilities. And then finally, we have the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. And again, we're walking further into accessibility on public roads, public entities, public facilities. So more specifically, there's a couple different areas. The ADA law talks about public right-of-way accessibility guidelines. And the guidelines were formed in the early 2000s. There were a lot of state DOTs and local DOTs that had started to formulate their own guidelines separately, but the public right-of-way access guidelines kind of laid out one standard for federal facilities, federal projects, and how pedestrian facilities should interact on public rights-of-way. So the public right-of-way access guidelines became law in 2023, and the USGSA actually adopted the final rule in 2024. So there's a good bit of time between 2010 in the early 2000s until 2024 during the Biden administration when the rules, the guidelines actually became federal law. So anything that we touch or do with a sidewalk that's in a public right-of-way now, we're mandated by government to follow these guidelines. Again, these guidelines fall within Title II of the ADA Act for state and local governments. So talking just a little bit about our ADA self-evaluation and inventory, I wanted to provide some context of what exactly did we do. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that we are working with Cole and Associates, and really what we wanted to do was collect information in the most efficient manner that we could. And so that involved the use of technology. So we've got a couple of pictures here. Their technicians use Panasonic Toughbooks based upon GIS to gather information about our sidewalks. They had custom fillable fields so that they could identify if a sidewalk had a utility or had a vegetative encroachment of some kind. If bushes are growing out into the sidewalk, they could hit a button and it would drop a point on a map where they are on the sidewalk. So the picture in the middle that you see there, you probably know that as a segue. This is what they use. So the thought behind it is that it most closely matches the width of somebody using a wheelchair. So it rides on the sidewalk. It's got an inertial profiler and a downward-facing laser on the front of that Segway, and so it's able to collect both vertical and horizontal deviations in the sidewalk. So their team actually came in from Missouri. They rode all the sidewalks in the city on these Segways and collected line work and thousands of data points, which now reside within the city's inventory. And so if you ever want to see that, it's actually public facing. You can go and look at the city's sidewalk inventory on the open data site. Just wanted to note that the city has roughly 112 unique zones that we collect data in. So we've got the city broken down into zones just to try to make the work a little bit more manageable. But further to that, we break all of our street sections down into corridors. And one corridor would be a street from intersection to intersection. Okay, and so we evaluate all the elements of the sidewalk based upon that one corridor. Then we will develop a score and develop prioritization based upon that. So jump a little bit into prioritization and what that looks like. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Just some information and findings before we jump into the prioritization. So the city has roughly 36,300 curb ramps. We actually, with the budget we had when we did this, we were actually only able to fully evaluate about half. So one of the things that we're actually working on now is a tool that our inspection staff can use to actually go out and finish that evaluation. So we're excited about that. It's an app that can actually deploy on any iPad, Android device, phone, and so we're really excited about that. We identified roughly 790 missing curb ramp locations. So those are some of the biggest barriers to accessibility. Just to give you an example, we have a fair number of locations in the city where a sidewalk may end and then a curb ramp would allow someone to transition into the street. But we do not have a curb ramp on the other side of the street to accept that person. And so just due to differing design standards as the city grew, a lot of times driveways were used as ramps. And so, those are things that we'll have to work through with this plan. In terms of sidewalk, the city has roughly 1,140 miles of sidewalk within our corporate limits. One key thing to point out with that is North Carolina state law dictates that the city maintains all the sidewalk within our corporate limits. So it doesn't matter if it's on a street that we own or if it's on a street that North Carolina DOT owns and maintains. State law dictates that we maintain 100% of the sidewalk. So that number reflects all of the sidewalk that's on a public road within the city of Raleigh, give or take a little bit, because we're accepting around 8 miles of new streets a year. So one of the more important things about that number, we also inventoried where we don't have sidewalk. And there's a couple different things to say about that. There are locations where we may have a phase line or a sidewalk stub that did not continue, and we call that missing because there's a gap and we need to fill the gap to finish the connectivity, to finish the pedestrian access route. There are other areas of the city where we surveyed and we put line work on a map that says that there is no sidewalk. And essentially what that means is there is no sidewalk, there is no connectivity, and there's no sidewalk needed from a compliance standpoint. It doesn't mean that sidewalk can't be built there or shouldn't be built there. It just means that it's not currently needed from a compliance standpoint. So I do want to just highlight that, but roughly 133 miles of missing sidewalk in the city. So, and that number is just what we need from a compliance standpoint. So, just over the last year, I do want to highlight that our team over in project management and maintenance has been working with Barbara and Will to identify gaps. And over the last year, we've completed about 30 gaps in the city. So we're working as hard as we can, and we were able to leverage some existing contracts, and we filled some historically known micro gaps in the city. So just wanted to highlight that as well. So what are some of the common issues that we see with our curb ramps? One of the main issues is slopes above the maximum allowed. Detectable warning surface, truncated domed widths at curb ramps. These are some of the common issues that we see. Change in level at gutter transitions is also a big problem that we see. And essentially what that means is if a road has been resurfaced several times, it may have a higher crown point. And so when a wheelchair or chair user tries to transition from the pavement back up onto the ramp, you've got kind of an acute angle that they have to be able to navigate there. And so we have those issues with the change in level at gutter transitions. And then, of course, we do have missing curb ramps where required. So those are the common identifiable items in terms of curb ramps. Sidewalks, common issues that we see, obstructions. You have a lot of legacy sidewalks out there that have streetlights, that have signal poles, that have all manner of utility poles that interrupt the sidewalk and otherwise narrow the sidewalk. So those are things that we are working through how to navigate. How do we purchase right away to move utilities? Can we relocate utilities? Things like that. Changes in level, we refer to these as a heave in the sidewalk. Common issues with a city that has a lot of trees. And so some of the things that we negotiate on the maintenance side is how do we mitigate some of these things? Because on one hand, we want to have an accessible sidewalk and compliant sidewalk. On the other hand, we all like to have trees as well. And so we work hand in hand with parks to try and come up with solutions that will extend the life of the sidewalk and hopefully give us a product that's compliant. Cross slope variations on the picture on the far right there. We do have sidewalks in the city that have a cross slope that is a little bit too steep. Normally that needs to be no more than about 2%. When you start to get over 2%, then sometimes you can get in a situation where somebody who is a chair user may have a feeling that they're going to tip over. So we want to try to work to fix those issues where we can. And then the last item is unique, and it's driveway cross slopes. So many of the older neighborhoods that you'll see that don't have the same right-of-way as newer development oftentimes have driveways that are at a steeper slope or a different slope than the sidewalk. And so when a chair user transitions from sidewalk and they cross a driveway that's at a different grade, that also may cause them to tip and fall out of their chair. And so those are things that we need to evaluate and continue to work on as a city. And I will mention that that's going to be a particularly difficult path, just given the city code. The city code requires that residents maintain their own driveways. And so it's one of those things that we're going to have to continue to work on and think about as we move to implement our transition plan. So let's talk about cost. This is probably a shocking number for some of the folks here. But roughly $411 million. This was, if we could snap our fingers and fix all the problems right now, this is roughly what it would cost. I think you can see that the vast majority is linear sidewalk issues. So you've got a various number of broken panels, trip hazards, vegetative issues, maybe sign issues, overhead issues, narrow sidewalk, obstructions, a combination of a lot of different things that's leading into that large number just for sidewalk. You've got curb ramps, which is about $44 million, which is not a small number in itself. And then you've got refuge islands, just to touch on that. We have some roads in the city that have refuge islands where a pedestrian crossing the street can actually stop in the middle, feel like they're safe, and then once able, they can actually continue on. And so we do also have some of those in the city that we need to either widen or improve as part of this process. So total about $412 million. So how do we do all this? How do we tackle this? We prioritize. So in our ADA transition plan, it's heavily focused on how do we prioritize. So we have worked with our team at Cole and internally, and we've developed some activity factors that we use to try and use a data-driven approach to prioritization. So I'll start out on the left column. These are things that are primarily location-driven. So a sidewalk's proximity to government buildings, to transit stops, hospitals, schools, all those things that you see on the left there will get a scoring based upon how close they are to those types of services or locations. So the closer they are, the better grade they'll get. The further away they are, the lower grade they'll get, and probably will end up higher in the prioritization. On the right side there are what I like to call some analysis factors. So you have road class. Is this a main arterial or is this a local street? Are there transit hubs on this road, or is it primarily residential? Another factor is employment. Are the people that live in this area more likely to walk to work, or are they more likely to drive a car to work? Those things are available through census data. Senior population. Are more seniors living in a particular area or not? Disabled population. Same factor. We look at the census data there. And then last but certainly not least, pedestrian accidents. How close is a sidewalk network or group of assets to locations where we've had pedestrian-focused incidents? So we take all those factors and we'll give them a score utilizing GIS, and it will funnel into that left side where it says activity ranking. The other thing that we look at is compliance. So we look at the actual asset itself. Is the sidewalk meet from a cross slope and a running slope perspective? What is the condition? Is it in good condition? Is it in fair condition, poor condition? For curb ramps, do they meet all the cross slope and running slope requirements that ProAg lays out for us? Based upon that data, the actual asset is assigned a compliance severity score. So when you add those two things together, we come up with what we call a barrier ranking for the corridor. From there, we actually take the corridor itself, a piece of street from intersection to intersection, and we rank. That process is actually ongoing now. So I'll talk a little bit about the public outreach. This kind of gives you an idea of where we're at and where we're going. But I did want to take a minute to talk about the public outreach. So as part of this process, the city did have to do public outreach. It's a requirement with any ADA transition plan or update that you have to solicit public comment. And so I did want to share with you some of the things that came out of that before we move through the rest of the points there. And I don't think that these are a surprise, but it's validating to know that we as a city staff kind of think similar to the citizens that live in this city. So in which areas does the city of Raleigh need to improve access? Top answer, accessible pedestrian pathways, sidewalks, curb ramps. Next was bus stop access. Third answer was street and crosswalk signals. Fourth answer was accessible amenities at City of Raleigh facilities, which that would be a different part of the transition plan. Another question, what is most important to you regarding accessibility, services, and inclusion? Number one answer, sidewalks. Number two answer, curb ramps. Number three answer, bus stops. Number four answer, pedestrian signals at intersections and crossings. So again, very heavily weighted on things that reside within the public right-of-way. Which should be the highest priority to improve the City of Raleigh's public rights-of-way buildings with public access or websites? Please choose those that are most important to you. Number one answer, sidewalks. 2, bus stops. 3, curb ramps. 4 traffic signals, 5 parking. So again, there are a lot of common themes here that we thought we would see, and it's validating to know that some of the things that we care about are things that our citizens care about as well. So just quickly, we did conduct public outreach starting in mid-December. We actually had a meeting at our facility over on Westinghouse Boulevard. Following that meeting, we had a public comment period that was open through mid-January. So once we finished that, we did collect the information from that public outreach study that I just touched on, and that information feeds directly into our draft ADA transition plan. As we just touched on, the prioritization of all of our corridors in the city is currently in progress. We anticipate being close to done with that within the next couple weeks. The implementation plan. So implementation takes the prioritized list and pairs it with available budget. One of the things that we need to work on and understand is that we need to apply a budget to this work plan that is realistic. And so one of the things that we'll be working on probably around September or October of this year is feeding this transition plan into our capital budgeting process. The capital budgeting process in the city of Raleigh starts roughly around the end of September, beginning of October each year. So we'll be taking this information that we have and feeding that into the capital budgeting process. Thankfully, with existing maintenance programs that we've had for many years, we'll be able to transition a lot of those capital budget asks that we have made year over year. We'll be able to formalize it into one program instead of maybe 3 or 4 different programs. So again, I do want to stress that there's a budget element to this, and we have to compete for dollars along with every other program in the city. So I do want to put that out there. The adoption of the ADA transition plan, aiming for late 2026. Once we make it through that capital budgeting process and we're able to land on something that's reasonable year over year, is when we'll push to adopt the plan. I don't think that it's a formal council adoption. I think that it's an administrative adoption by our department that we're going to make a commitment to do this. The city already has an ADA transition plan. It's been in place for a number of years. This is just really an updated element to that transition plan, specifically for public rights-of-way. The next steps beyond that is just to work the plan. I have a good friend who constantly says this: we need to work the plan. If we're going to work this hard and we're going to put the information together, we need to work the plan. And so what does that mean, really? So we come up with a list of the first locations that we want to repair or remediate, is what the ADA law says. We work to secure funding. We repair or remediate those areas. The next step is to reevaluate. Which areas move up? Which areas do we need to maybe reprioritize? And then we update the plan. So this is a very iterative process. And year over year, our team will continue to look at what we've been able to repair. We'll move it not off the list, but down, far down the list. And we'll look at the next set of priorities. So it's it's a very iterative process as we go into the future. So just to close out, the transition plan is a living document. It's not something that we should put on a shelf when we finish it. It's a document that should guide our planning and our actions going forward. So with any living plan or document, we need to update it as needed. And so that will be something that we'll at least do annually. As funding's available, we may have the Cole and Associates team come in and actually do that update for us. We may actually have them come in and resurvey parts of the city just to ensure that the work that we're doing gets us to a compliant state. We need to match realistic budgets to our work projections and needs. So again, that's on our team from a city staff perspective, and we'll be communicating with our leadership and with our elected officials to stress the need for this program and to try and secure adequate funding going forward. Priorities can and should change. I think everybody has probably heard of BRT in this room, and that is going to be a very different look for New Bern Avenue when that project is complete. And so with that, not only are we going to have to add assets to our system, we'll have to reevaluate how those assets connect to the neighborhoods on each side, and what then do we need to do to fill missing gaps, those types of things. So that's just an example of why it's always important to reevaluate and reprioritize. And I can't say it enough, work the plan. Each day we should get better, all the way down to my crews that go out and replace sidewalk every day. Each day we should get a little bit better. So remediate, that involves just repairs and additions of sidewalk for compliance. Document, we certainly want to document any work we do, and thankful that we have a couple of robust tools to do that here in the city, both with CityWorks. We use CityWorks to document a lot of the work that we do, along with Trimble Unity Construct. We'll reevaluate, and then we'll update the plan. So with that, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and to present and just to share a little bit about what we're doing on the project management and asset side here in transportation, and happy to take any questions or comments.
Mr. Griffin, first of all, I just want to say thank you for a really well-constructed and considered document. And I appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
And on a personal note, I've been dealing with you and other people in the Department of Transportation for the last couple of years, and I just wanted to say how impressed I am, not only with the competency, but the care. It's very obvious in talking with you and other folks in the Department of Transportation that you guys are on board with this. And having spent a couple of decades doing this, it's very refreshing, and I really appreciate it. In the spirit of this being a living document, could you go back to the page where the criteria for prioritizing?
Yes, sir.
So the last thing that you mentioned was pedestrian accidents.
That's correct.
I'm on a personal mission to eliminate the use of accidents in that setting. It should be crashes.
Crashes. Yep.
That's a loaded word, and it carries, some assessment that may not be warranted as to what happened.
Noted, and I will make the change. Thank you.
So I had a couple of questions. One was the state government campus and the streets, the right-of-way that laces through those buildings.
Okay.
I don't know exactly who's in charge of that section or where it is, what part of your system it is, but I've heard that basically it's hands-off from the city of Raleigh. Anytime, I've heard a couple of anecdotes where people have tried to deal with state government, and state government has said, go away, we're not doing anything. And there's some issues in that area, and I was just wondering if there was a way in the plan to address that, outside of DOT, because I don't even think it's DOT that has final say over what happens on those roads.
Correct, and that's a good question. And a lot of folks may not be aware of that, but there are two distinct locations in the city of Raleigh that do not fall under city control when it comes to sidewalks. The first location is around the General Assembly. The way that state law is actually written, all the property, sidewalks, and everything to what they call the far curb is the way the law is written. So the building, the grounds, the sidewalks across the street to the far curb belongs to the General Assembly and is controlled by the Legislative Services Office. So that's one location where if we got a complaint, we would need to try to work with the Legislative Services Office to bring it to their attention and to work with them on resolution. The other location is the Governor's Mansion. State law prescribes that the North Carolina Department of Transportation is responsible for the Governor's Mansion Square. So those are the two locations that I'm aware of in state law where it's really descriptive and prescribes who is supposed to do what. Believe it or not, we had a issue with some pavers around the state capitol a couple weeks ago, and so we did the same exercise to make sure, is this ours or is this the state's? It's ours, and so we sent our teams out to assess it and do the repairs. But certainly, it's worth noting, and from our side, it's going to just take some really heavy work to coordinate with that because, as you say, we have gone to the Governor's Mansion to reset some pavers a time or two based on a complaint, and we've been asked to leave by the State Highway Patrol. So it's getting to the right people, and we're going to have to work on those relationships to be able to.
I already know I don't need to point out the
done.
locations. You're aware of them. Let's see, what was the other thing? The driveways over the sidewalks and the law that the city that says that residents are responsible for maintaining driveways. Is there a plan, or has there been any discussion about coming up with change to the city code on that?
Not as of yet, no.
Okay.
Really and truly, we don't know what kind of size problem we have with driveways. To add a little bit of context, the city was not responsible for maintaining sidewalks until 2014. And it was really only an action of city council in 2014 to suspend assessments for sidewalk repairs that transferred responsibility to maintenance to the city. So what I will say is we structured our inventory and the way that we measured the driveway sidewalk in such a way that if this does become ours, we have all the information to go ahead and make decisions and to prioritize. But actual action to change city code, no, that has not been looked at.
So assuming that everybody on the board, on the commission supports this, how would you like for us to express support for this?
In terms of changing city code?
No, for the plan, I'm sorry. Do we need to endorse this? Do we need to send a letter to council? Will you let us know how you'd like for us to express support for it?
Certainly, we would like BPAC to review the plan once it's out of draft form, and we would certainly appreciate an endorsement to move forward with the recommendations, provided funding is available.
So I just wanted to broach one other topic. I know it's a little out there, but $411 million is a lot of money. And I have been really pleased and just thrilled with the input and care of the ADA coordinator, Christina Bowman. I also am aware that her job is a huge job. And I'm wondering if it would not be good to have an ADA coordinator working in the Department of Transportation, if nothing else, to manage the Title II transition plan for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years or 4 years, whatever, in order to expedite it. Because as we've talked before, waiting means agreeing to pay more for stuff because the prices are just going to go up. So I'm wondering if there has been a discussion, or if there can be a discussion about putting in this plan an ADA coordinator who works solely on Title II right-of-way stuff for the city.
Certainly, I think that a position like that could be warranted within Raleigh DOT. I will say that just within my team, I do have one person that is solely dedicated to sidewalks. It may be that we transition that person into a formalized role of ADA coordinator. We also have project management staff that handle our day-to-day projects as it relates to sidewalks. So we have existing maintenance programs to replace broken sidewalks. We have existing maintenance programs to do what we call sidewalk cutting. So if you've walked anywhere in the city, you've probably seen, where we actually shave down. And so we use a vendor for that and have for almost 15 years. And so it would be great to have a dedicated person. And it may be that we move the sidewalk coordinator that we have into a formalized role in the coming years with the adoption of this plan. But I think a position like that would benefit the department, not only from my standpoint, but also maybe from a planning standpoint.
Well, I attended the public outreach meeting in December, and I spoke with you at length and Christina Bowman at length, and I spoke with the contractor, Cole, the folks from Cole, and I'm very impressed, and I think you guys did a really thorough job, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
I do want to say that if we brought on a position like that, it would be to supplement Christina, would not be to take anything from her. I think it would be definitely to help her out and to supplement her, because I know she is working very hard on the facility side as well of this issue. So.
Oh, and let me just add, I'm on the Raleigh Wake Council of the Blind and North Carolina Council of the Blind, and if there's anything that our organization can do to assist you, if you have any questions, if there's any, if you need feedback or you want to outreach to us, please, you're welcome anytime. Just let me know, and I'll arrange it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I have a couple questions on, so as far as the implementation plan, I guess there's sort of two questions that are related. Can you, just for context, can you give us like an order of magnitude of what the funding looks like today? I know a lot of ADA projects sort of happen as a side effect of other projects and things like that. But like how much funding do we currently have programmed for kind of standalone remediation? And it does the plan overall sort of request additional funding? And related to that, does the, presumably this is like a multi-decade, I mean, basically $500 million program, like it's not going to be next year. Does the plan have a kind of a horizon year, or is it just a, here's everything that we see that we need to do and we'll do it as we can? Or is there some type of end date? I mean, even if it's aspirational, is there some type of like goal to kind of finish a meaningful percentage of the plan?
Good question, and I'm trying to just make sure I understand all parts of it. So to answer your first question in terms of funding, this current capital budget process that we utilize, we work in transportation to identify what our priorities are. There's only a certain amount of capital funding that's available from year to year. And currently with the different programs we have, we get about $3 million a year, and that's spread across several different programs that we utilize for capital maintenance. In terms of implementation, it's going to be a phased implementation. Knowing that we are only going to get $3 million, that is where we're going to begin. And so what we would like to do as the years progress is say, here's the identified need, because we'll have a prioritized list at that point, is we will start to then bump our capital ask year over year to get us to a point where we feel like A, it's a reasonable number, and B, can the contracting industry actually deliver? Okay, so right now we're very, very early on in the development of the draft plan. The number that we kind of would like to be at is around somewhere between $11 and $13 million a year. But again, we have to compete with different priorities across the city in order to do that. So in an ideal world, if we were to get that, we would be at about a 25-year horizon point where we would work through the initial list of prioritization. But again, we're at a point where things may change and we need to reevaluate and we need to reprioritize. So I feel like I can only answer your question in part because after that 25 years, you don't know how infrastructure has changed. You don't know how new development can change things. You don't know how neighborhoods are going to redevelop and how that may create gaps for you. So I hope that at least gives you an idea of where we are currently in terms of budget, where we want to be, and kind of what that initial time frame was looking like in terms of a basis of our initial thoughts and planning.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
So a couple of things. This was a great presentation. Thank you so much. I'm super excited to dig into that OpenGIS data and see the maps. That's really exciting. Kind of tie into the last question and some of the comments you just made regarding the numbers that you've put that were included here for number of sidewalks missing, remediation, and then thinking in terms of budget. Does that include projects that are already slated, like new developments where a new building's going in and they are then responsible for updating sidewalk, or is that in addition to?
Excellent question. So there are two things. We have capital projects that exist within the city's roadway design and construction group. Some of those are sidewalk focused and seek to fill gaps that have historically existed within the city. that is my experience of the program. We've had a historical list of sidewalk gaps for a number of years in the city, and some work was done a number of years ago to rank those in terms of easy projects to hard projects. And our roadway design and construction group has taken on a lot of the hard projects that require purchase of property, more extensive engineering, retaining walls, that sort of thing. So to answer part of your question, some of it does involve existing city projects can be either city roads or state DOT roads. In terms of private development, I know that our land development team does look for ways that with new development where the UDO will allow is to fill those sidewalk gaps as much as we can. So certainly when new developments come in, whether it be commercial or whether it be infill or a new subdivision, we look at identifying what can we do within the bounds of the UDO to construct sidewalk along commercial frontage where it may not exist, or to provide a pedestrian access route that improves connectivity. So along both of those lines, we are even though I'm not involved with those day to day, I know that we are working on both fronts to try and improve accessibility and fill some of the gaps.
Okay. So with that, do you anticipate that new development coming in where there's already either city funding allocated toward it or it's private development, do you anticipate that that would bring the anticipated budget needs down at all?
Potentially it could.
Okay.
It could at times. I think the more likely scenario is that if we don't have to spend money at point A, we'll have to reevaluate and spend at point B. And so instead of the need going down, it will probably stay the same. We'll just fill that gap with other needs.
And then also along the lines of budget, I'm thinking about materials. I know I've seen in a few places the new Flexi Pave material's been used in
Yes.
places where tree roots are problematic, or there's just something else that's not working. Does that is that included in any of this as far as alternative materials and a difference in cost?
It can be, absolutely. Traditionally, we would want to replace our concrete sidewalks with concrete. That's how our maintenance programs are traditionally set up. But we also want to have an open mind where if we do have mature trees, street trees that have established root systems, we have used FlexiPave to move around those trees and to reconstruct a sidewalk that is compliant within the rules, but is able to, you can have a certain amount of variation between the existing running slope of a sidewalk, so you can ramp up a certain percentage and you can ramp down a certain percentage. We utilize FlexiPave to do that in areas where we need to ramp up and down over tree roots, things like that. So we'll continue to implement products like that around the city. There's also some projects that utilize things like boardwalks. So that's, again, just another option that's out there. Albeit it's an expensive item and it's a maintenance intensive item. But there are other options out there that we'll certainly explore, and really give some kudos to my maintenance team for going out and getting FlexiPave and figuring it out. And we actually got the vendor up here from Florida to show us how to install it. And here in the next few weeks, you should see some work going on downtown to retrofit a bunch of the tree wells in downtown with FlexiPave. So we're really excited about that as well.
Exciting. And then my last question, in terms of prioritization, is that data being overlaid with any of the Ask Raleigh data, or is there not enough Ask Raleigh data at this point?
I don't know that we're overlaying any of the Ask Raleigh data at this time. I think with the Ask Raleigh data, there are a lot of automations in place that send us information about sidewalk issues. And so we take that information, and we are somewhat reactive most of the time to the things that come in through Ask Raleigh. So with the Ask Raleigh data, I would say we're probably actually a little more proactive than waiting for something to get on a plan, because we do want to go out, investigate, see what the issue is, and see if we can go ahead and remediate it. So in terms of the Ask Raleigh data, hopefully we've gotten ahead of any issues that may be on our current inventory. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Griffin, echoing the other commissioners, thanks for the presentation. Very detailed. I just had a quick, I guess, sort of two-parter, but hopefully very quick. Cole and Associates, were they responsible for just the field survey portion or also involved in developing the draft plan?
Yeah, so the first time that we contracted with Cole was actually back in 2021. And so they did the field survey portion for us. They actually partnered with some local engineering firms to do that back in 2021. And then we brought them in again once we had the funding available to start on the path of developing the ADA transition plan. So in transportation, we have a number of master service agreements with 6 or 7 engineering firms, and Cole and Associates actually went through the RFQ process and was selected to be one of our master service agreement firms. And so thankfully we were able to engage with them and get them to come back and help us with this.
Okay. On the subject of the prioritization criteria, I was curious to hear just a little bit more about the employment commute census database issue, where people aren't walking to work because the facility maybe doesn't fit their needs. And I was wondering if there's maybe potential to document in the plan or something like a desire to switch to something a little more proactive, like a land use based, proximity between residential and employment zones in the future, rather than that more reactive kind of who's walking currently type of measure.
Right.
But I don't know if that's I'm not, an expert, so I don't know if that's like kind of a best practice from the ADA community.
So what I will say is that we do have quite a number of examples in our transition plan. So we do have proximity to retail and office zoning as part of the activity scoring that we're doing. I think we could certainly maybe look to substitute that with land use. And really, I would have to talk with Steve and Nick with Cole to see what their thoughts were, and if some of the larger municipalities or state DOTs are, how they're incorporating land use, because they've kind of been through this exercise with TxDOT. They're uniquely different. TxDOT maintains all the sidewalks in Texas, so I think it's maybe a point taken on my side, and I'll have to go and look into that. Our thought was to try and leverage the census data as much as we could to see which folks are more likely to walk to work or to walk to a transit stop to then get to work. So that was our thought in developing that in that metric. But maybe it has a little bit more to do with where they're going instead of how they're getting there.
And on that topic, it could be even just, I'm assuming you use the self-reported commute mode, but using single-car households or zero car households could help get closer to that as well, just as an idea. But thank you anyway
thank
for
you.
the presentation.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I want to add on that a little bit. I think there was a comment that some of the sections are decided not needing sidewalk. So I want to second. I'm sorry, I don't know. I forgot your name already. Your opinion about maybe do a little bit additional research, because I was recently in discussion with some of my neighbors, and I live near the Wegmans area, and they expressed there's no way for them to get to Raleigh Ironworks, which is like right off the street, for example. And I think sometimes there are desire, but it's like there's a lack of infrastructure, so they have it kind of forces them to have to drive, and then it's like a loop. So the better infrastructure, the more accessible it is, more people are going to be encouraged to use it. So that also kind of like helps shaping the future a little bit.
Okay.
Because there was a discussion about we don't know how the city is going to evolve in 25 years, but perhaps some of the decision we make right now can help forming some of the changes to guide the city to develop to a more sustainable kind of direction. But thank you so much.
Yep. No, thank you. And one thing that I'll just mention that came to mind is a lot of the areas where we see missing sidewalk will come into play. And you mentioned Raleigh Ironworks and Whitaker Mill and that Wake Forest Road, Atlantic Avenue corridor. That is a good example of where we have missing sidewalks, because we have a lot of stubs that kind of go for a little bit and then they stop. And so having those missing sidewalks is going to bring that weight up a little bit, as opposed to just looking at it in terms of having no infrastructure. So I had that thought, and I wanted to mention it, is if it's considered missing or there's a gap there, that will certainly bring the prioritization up a little bit more.
And to jump in, excuse me, and to jump in with that, so a lot of what Ben and his team does is the maintenance and evaluation of existing assets, where the mobility development group that we look at how we want to further add new assets to our system. And so this is not a one-stop shop where it's just Ben's team that does sidewalks. There are many different avenues to get sidewalks. So one of those things that we just recently adopted was the active mobility plan that looked at where are we missing these connections, did a lot of land use planning, a lot of desire lines to try to see where we should prioritize, where we add new infrastructure in. So everything is really interrelated, but happy to talk more about that with you. But just want to let you know it's not all on Ben and his team. We have got a lot of different avenues to get multimodal infrastructure advanced and on the ground.
Thank you so much. I have another thought. So on the priority list, I guess, how do I form my question? When you decide a certain type of sidewalk is a priority, is there a possibility to focus funding to solve to improve focusing on a area, so that one area will have dramatic improvement of infrastructure, and then we can maybe collect data before and after to see if there's a improvement of usage of the infrastructure, and then if it looks very positive, perhaps that's a way to get more funding for other projects. But it's just a thought. I don't know how practical it could be.
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. I think going back to what Will just mentioned is the city does have an active mobility plan, and our work will certainly tie together with their plan and where the city wants to prioritize sidewalks, new sidewalks in the future. From our standpoint, as I mentioned before, we look at everything on a corridor basis. And so if we're looking at a section of street between two intersections, we're looking at kind of everything in that corridor. Now, if we can string 2 or 3 corridors together and, just to, for example, if we can put together, Whitaker Mill Road from, Atlantic to Wake Forest and then Wake Forest down towards 5 Points, we can start to put some of these corridors together, then you really start to see a holistic improvement. So it's a point well taken, and thank you for mentioning that. And we do want to try and look at things from a geographic perspective as well to try and maximize the improvement for the area while we're there.
Thank you so much.
This all brings something to mind here, and it's on the criteria for prioritization page again. I don't remember hearing anything about economics, like as a priority, as a criteria for priority, like businesses, like access to businesses, where the businesses are, the ones that, especially in areas where parking might be at a premium, where downtown area, Glenwood. Is that something that should maybe go on there? I don't know.
So
access to businesses.
The one thing that we do have is proximity to retail and office on there. So
okay, great.
We could look and see if there's a different maybe land use we could add to that. But I think that retail and office should probably cover that economic factor.
The reason I say that is from personal experience. When I moved back to Raleigh 3 years ago now, not having a car when we were looking for a place to live, that was what we were considering, where the restaurants are, where the drugstore is, where a doctor is, where the dentist is. So that's why we ended up living halfway between 440 and Millbrook, because all those things were less than a mile away. And that's like a prime driver for decision-making for us. Not working anymore, so that's the primary thing, is access to services.
So one thing I'll do is I'll go and go back and discuss with Cole, dig a little bit more into what does that retail and office zoning case actually cover, and make sure that we are looking at a wide assortment of retail operations. I know sometimes like bars and restaurants are sometimes retail, sometimes not. I'm not a zoning expert by any means, but certainly we can go back and take a look at that just to make sure we are getting a wide cross section of businesses, economic type locations, grocery stores, things that are important to folks that want to walk there. Absolutely.
Okay, and so yeah, with that, I'll say, very, very detailed, very good presentation. I think we all will look forward to this moving forward and being adopted and being implemented. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Again, appreciate your time, and my contact info is there. Please feel free to reach out anytime.
Chair Caruso, could I propose that planning, like a formal item for the planning committee, to just keep an eye out for the draft plan and take a focus on that when it's ready?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that. Yeah, I'll make a note. Yeah, I mean, if you want to just add it as one of your pending items in committee, I think that would be appropriate. And our second presentation is from our own Mr. Will Shoemaker on Neighborhood Traffic Management Program overview.
Thank you for that introduction again. Yeah, my name is Will Shoemaker with the Transportation Department. At one of the meetings near the end of last year, we were asked to bring back the NTMP, the Neighborhood Traffic Management Program, to really, I guess, talk about how this program works, kind of the overview, the call to action that exists for this program within the city. Look at the output that we do with this program, look at the impact on adjacent streets, and then look at our engagement strategy. And so looking at the broader picture, the overview, traffic calming is really just changing the road geometry to try to get a desired behavior. In this case, it's slowing drivers down and working to reduce or eliminate crashes. The NTMP was adopted by City Council in 2009 to address the city's need for traffic calming, and the NTMP was given 3 tools. The first being multi-way stops to address intersection safety. The second being speed limit reductions to set more appropriate speed limits. And lastly, traffic calming projects whenever regulatory signage and markings is not doing a good enough job to get the behavior that we want. And one thing I do want to add is that these are all on local neighborhood streets. So we're not talking about a Capitol Boulevard here. It's going to be your local street where you live. And really the vision of this program is to improve the safety, improve speed compliance, and enhance the quality of life in all of Raleigh's neighborhoods. Looking at the toolkit that we have, so a road in its purest form really is just a straight line. And how do you get people to slow down on a straight line? You put curves into it. And so one way to put a curve is to make people go up and down. So our vertical treatments that we use regularly are speed humps, speed cushions, and speed tables. They are all effectively the same thing. You have to go up and over it. We just look at the context of the street, the characteristics of use, and try to make sure that we're putting the right device for the right need. The other is the horizontal. So again, putting curves in the road, but you're now making kind of a serpentine motion. Traffic calming is all about eliminating straight lines. And so with horizontal treatments, we use things like neighborhood traffic circles, curb bump outs, and chicanes. It really is just making sure that we're using the right device to get the desired behavior based on the roadway conditions and the use patterns that we're seeing out there. And so looking at why the NTMP functions the way that it does, why are we focused on a more tactical implementation approach, was our budget, and really looking at the history of where we were when we first adopted this program to where we are and why we are here today. And so traffic calming at its core, really the tools that we use have moved towards a more tactical installation. And that is because we used to have the streetscape program. In its inception, there was 2 different project routes that a street could take. If a street was 31 foot or narrower, you got speed humps. Or speed humps, rather. If your street was greater than 31 feet, you got a streetscape project. And with that, we took the approach of, if we're going to be doing that, we're under the hood, we're going to fix all the problems. So with that was a mechanism to get sidewalks, change curb lines, do drainage, do everything that we could to bring that to a more complete street. And while that was a phenomenal idea, that really did impact our ability to deliver. And so the streetscapes themselves, we only had the budgets to offer a project every 1 to 2 years. In pre-COVID dollars, we were estimating about $1 to $2 million per street to do that. And really the demand that was there and our ability to output about a street every other year. We had about 150 streets that we had identified as meeting the criteria, meaning that our list for delivery was about 300 years long. That sets a terrible expectation to the community that we're going out and saying, hey, you got a problem, your like 10x grandchildren are going to get the solution. And so based on that feedback we got from the community, we took to council and asked, what are the values? And they asked us to try to better meet that demand. And that's whenever we really shifted away from that approach to this tactical installation. And traffic calming in the form that we do it now is probably the simplest form of design. We don't move curb lines. We're really trying not to add impervious. We're not really impacting the storm water flows or any of those things. We are retrofitting the existing street by putting surface mounted devices on there. And by doing that, we've been able to more closely match the need that exists or the demand of people that are reaching out to us. And that better aligns with our ability to deliver, which we'll get into in a little bit, as well as the budgets that are available. Because I mean, you saw the numbers that Ben put up there. We're all jockeying for a limited pot of money with a city with infinite needs. And it's really about how do we prioritize and get the most bang for our buck. And so Raleigh currently puts forward about $1.5 million every year into the neighborhood traffic management program. So we treat about 15 to 20 streets on an annual basis, and that runs in that $1.5 million range for everything we try to do. So looking at the eligibility, how does your street become a street that is working towards a project? So the first is you have to reach out. But what we look at, is it a local street as defined by the UDO? This is a bit of a typo there. So streets that are less than 6,000, I'm not sure how I got greater than 5,000 there, but if your local street is less than 6,000 vehicles a day, which is the vast majority of local streets, yours is a street that we can evaluate. And then we also require that you've done a speed limit reduction to start with. And we require that because we're finding that on about 60 to 70% of the streets that we do this on, people appropriately reduce their speeds. Because a lot of times when people reach out and they say, people are speeding on our street, we'll go out there and we'll do our counts, and we'll find that most people are running 33, 34, 35. They're not breaking the law because the state law says that it's unposted 35. And so there's nothing that we can do. It's just it feels too fast, and it is too fast. And so Raleigh agrees that that's too fast for a local speed limit. That's why the UDO and the Street Design Manual have all new local streets coming in at a posted 25. And it's really the function of the NTMP to go back and try to sign and lower all of the historic streets, which there are about 5,000 neighborhood streets or local streets that exist in Raleigh that have a speed limit greater than either 25 or 30 miles an hour. And that's why we do require that first step being a speed limit reduction, because if we can resolve it quickly and cost effectively, then that's a win for everybody. And so you as a resident or as someone that's visiting can reach out to me and my team and we say, hey, I think my street has a problem. We're going to evaluate it. And so we have defined a speed compliance problem to make a street eligible as if you have an 85th percentile speed, meaning that 85% of drivers are going at or under that speed of greater than 7 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. So if that, on a 25 mile an hour speed limit street, if you have an 85th percentile of greater than 32 miles an hour, your street becomes eligible for traffic calming. And then also we look at crashes, and crashes is another very important thing, where if your street has greater than or equal to 2 speed-related crashes in the previous 3 years, your street is eligible. So as long as one of those 2 criteria are met, your street becomes eligible for a future project. Every street has a unique characteristics. Are there sidewalks? Are there bike lanes? Is there a bus stop? Are you near transit? Are you near employment activities? All of those things get factored in such that we get a total score, and then we rank all streets based on a worst first approach, with the streets having the greatest score, having the greatest quantifiable need as we have defined. And so we work off that using a worst first approach. So 2020 was really a big year for us when a lot of these policy changes started coming to fruition, going to council, and then being able to implement. So pre-2020, my group was able to offer about 7 to 10 projects each cycle, with each engagement cycle lasting about 2 years. That was due to a whole lot of reasons that were in the policy, but then based on the the needs of the community, the demand that we're seeing, direction from council, they asked us to really streamline this approach. How can we get better? How can we get faster? And so we pulled a lot of these non-value added steps that were using a lot of time out of the process, as well as moving to that more tactical implementation. And we were able to quadruple our output, where now my team looks at 15 to 20 projects every single cycle, with a cycle lasting approximately 12 months. So again, over a 2-year period, historically we're doing maybe 10. Now we're doing up to 40. So it's really been a huge push to get more and more projects on the ground, and that's by us becoming more efficient, more efficient with your tax dollars. It really has not really been an increase in staffing or an increase in budget. It's still the similar or the same budgets and the same people staffing this group. And again, just looking at a number of the metrics that we have, the tracking in 2020, you see a dramatic shoot up in the number of projects that we're delivering and the speed limit reductions. Again, this is all a focus on, there's this massive need that exists. The current policies are not serving the residents of Raleigh. How can we better meet that? And so with these policy changes, you can see that implementation spike to better meet or more closely align with the demand that exists out there today. Looking at the effectiveness on how we do, we want to make sure that we're actually implementing projects that are effective. And so the average speed reduction of the typical traffic flow on a street is about 8 to 10 miles an hour. I think the more important number here is the average flow compared to the speed limit, because streets have varying difference. So we're finding that once we traffic calm a street, that flow is within about 1 mile an hour of the posted speed limit. So if it's a 25 mile an hour street, you can expect 85+% of people to going 26 or under. So we're hitting that target very, very closely. And with this, we're on all public streets, so there's really no volume cap. It's not like thou shalt be under a certain volume, so we don't go in with the expectation that it's going to be a volume reducing effort. But we do see, because it is something we track, about a 23% reduction in volume on the street that's traffic calmed. And we'll get into that a little bit more later, because how does that impact, where does that traffic go? Again, a little bit of a lagging indicator as we really up some of these policies, but you can see that between 2009 and 2021, we were able to put down 49 projects, and then after we kind of worked through the process and actually were able to go through the engagement, design, and delivery, starting in 2023, we've delivered 51 projects. So there's a massive increase in our output thanks to these policies that council has adopted starting in 2020 and then kind of trickling out over the next couple of years. Also want to look at engagement. So we switched to 100% virtual engagement for traffic calming, and we've seen dramatic increases in participation. So the average in-person attendance was 9. Now the average meeting, like the average project view is 90 people. And then the average participants is to 20. So looking at how many people we actually engage with, we've doubled those that even just attended. And if you've attended a public meeting, not all 9 of those people actually engage. So we're seeing dramatic increases in who we're reaching and who's actually talking with us about these projects by moving towards not a 3-hour window that you can come talk to us in person on a random Tuesday, but having these open with resources open for 2, 3, 5 weeks. So we're really capturing a whole lot more people, meeting them where they are, letting them review the materials, go back, sit on them, talk with their friends, and come back to us. So looking at the volume, this is just an example street or example project that we did. This is Harps Mill Road. We did this about 5 years ago. The red line is the street that received the traffic calming project. In the years that followed, all the streets in blue are streets that we heard from that said, now that this traffic calming project has been put in place, you have ruined our street. Our traffic is crazy. Speeds have gone up through the roof. You've just pushed the problem. So we wanted to say, well, how did we do that? What happened here? And so here's the data that we gathered. So Harpsville Road saw about 50% reduction in traffic, and and then looking at all the adjacent streets, looking at Hunting Ridge Road and Rainwater are two parallel streets that are both very wide, similar construction. They have their own needs. You saw about 300 to 400 vehicles increase on those, but again, those are streets that already had 2,000 to 3,000 vehicles a day, so it was a relatively small percentage increase. As kind of a side note, Hunting Ridge Road just had a project completed March of this year based on issues, and Rainwater just voted down a project end of last year. So we are already going through the process with them. But then if you look at all the other streets, Fiesta Way, about a 43% reduction, Tambark, 7%, Haymarket, 33% reduction, and Thorpeside Drive remained about constant. So overall, we saw about a 3,000 vehicles a day reduction in traffic through this neighborhood. Again, that's not our goal, but it is whenever you're using these neighborhood streets as connectors between two thoroughfares, that's what Hartsville was, and you feel like you can gain some time back by excessively speeding through neighborhood streets, then it is a value add when you can reduce volume and get those people to stay on the thoroughfares where the roads are designed to carry more traffic, higher speed traffic, and really let neighborhoods be neighborhoods. And so I didn't include the speed data because there's really no change in the overall speed data. It was just we saw volumes decrease everywhere in this neighborhood. So I was recently watching, as a little bit of an anecdote, a documentary about elephants and how they're a keystone species. They can smell water and they break through the brush, and then all the other animals use the pathways that they create to go get that. And that's kind of the best analogy that I can think of, is that on these collector streets that are collecting a lot of non-local traffic, if we can do a really good job at calming those streets, there are very positive ripple effects throughout the rest of the neighborhood. Again, every neighborhood is different. Every situation is different. We need to make sure that we are doing these evaluations to ensure that we are achieving similar results. But Raleigh really developed and grew using not a gridded method. So there's really only 1 to 2 ways out at most neighborhoods. So we're finding when that traffic pattern exists, these patterns replicate over and over and over again. So again, I can't guarantee that it's always going to be like that, but it's a pattern that we can pretty optimistically predict. But again, we're always going to follow up. Then looking at engagement, so wanted to share this slide because as of right now, traffic calming in Raleigh is an opt-in process. We ask you, do you want your street to be safer? And that's followed up by a ballot. And so we do want widespread participation, but it is also dependent on the people that live in that area voting for this project. So we don't want some group that's over here that just wants to see safe streets. We do want that, so don't hear that and don't sniff that out. But come in and bombard one of these streets with these ideas that this community does not want. So it's always a balance in making sure that we are getting widespread participation, but ensuring that the projects that we put forward are effective, number one, effective, but then two, are accepted by the communities that they're in. And so this is our direct targeted area, is on street and then about the approximate 2 blocks around the street in question. We do, there's some questions about what about property management? What about HOAs? What about all those? So we pull all of the data from the public record, and so whenever there's open space land, whenever there's HOA property, we use that and target those entities and send it to their mailing address. So we try very hard to reach out to those property management firms so they can, one, help amplify in that community, but so that they are informed. We also work with our comms teams to do targeted next door through our CAC meetings. We do use some level of targeted social media, and then also we post signage along the street. Again, it's really trying to target this area, but then also really the users of this street, so that we can get them to help us inform how they want to see these traffic calming changes implemented. And then really, as I kind of wrap up here, I do want to share that the NTMP is one program of many, kind of like we touched on with Ben in his presentation. He has his core duties, other teams and other programs have theirs. Traffic calming has been very successful, or the NTMP has been very successful as we have really focused that niche to be traffic calming on tactical traffic calming on streets that have an identified need, and scaling that using a very tried and tested toolkit, but not really moving on or moving outward from that to make these projects more complicated, more expensive, and more time intensive, because this is a very big need, and this program is trying to address that need as efficiently and as quickly as possible. And all that preamble to share that we have a Vision Zero, that team that is going to be going to council tomorrow to present their safety action plan that I think you're going to touch on a little bit later. So they have their lists and their priorities trying to look at safety. We have our school zone safety team, and our safe routes to school. We have our street lights. So there are a lot of different safety programs that exist within the city that try to fill the different niches that exist, so that we can have a lot of different approaches to getting to that ultimate Vision Zero. Because I mean, that's what this program is. But really, that safer street and slower streets. And so definitely want to open this up to questions, but as I kind of sign off here, I do want to share that the NTMP's annual report is slated for May 5th. So coming up, the first council meeting in the next month, where we're going to be presenting our work plan based on the priority list. We'll look at what we did last year, ask for authorization from council, and then we'll be asking for council on direction moving forward, especially with all the Vision Zero talk, just making sure that they feel from a policy perspective we're on the right track. So absolutely, please let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to continue this discussion.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I just want to very much agree that I feel like the NTMP program has been one of the most successful programs in sort of our sphere here, and I feel like everybody, for better or for worse, I feel like a lot of people want to adopt the program in more and more ways because they feel like it's so successful, and so I just wanted to acknowledge all the great work that's happening under this program, and yeah, I guess we'll look out for the yearly report and see what's in store for the next year or so. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I am super excited to see the city pivot and things like this to be more flexible and realistic. Couple of questions. I know back in the fall we talked about one of the traffic, I think it was a traffic calming, it may have been a change with streets, but where the neighborhood opted to put in bike lanes instead. Is that one of the options that is discussed or made available as a first choice, or is that only an option after many iterations have been rejected?
Yeah, and so that is definitely an area where we've kind of allowed some scope creep, where Raleigh has historically overbuilt a lot of their streets. So it's wider than they really need to be, and so lane narrowing is a phenomenal traffic calming tool. It doesn't get you all the way there, so without knowing the specific street. So we're not going to one-for-one swap out a speed hump for a bike lane. That being said, we do work with Barbara and overlay the active mobility plan, specifically the bike layer map, onto our projects, and we are trying to be very advantageous where we can. A couple recent examples, one recent example, Grove Barton, was a very wide street, relatively low on street parking demand. There was still a little bit, and medium to low volumes. So we were able to put in a cycle track on the north side where there was really no real parking. We left it on the south side where a lot of those townhome communities felt that they had a need, and then we put speed humps in there. So we are absolutely using that where it is appropriate and where we have overlap in the plans. But again, where this is still an opt-in process, it's always an option that we can consider, but it's also if we get a lot of grassroots, a lot of people coming from that community saying, hey, have you thought about this? It's a lot easier for us to implement that as opposed to just like thou shalt get this, because if people vote no, then you get nothing, and we really just want to make the streets safer.
Yep. And then you mentioned that there's some streets that are neighborhood streets that the speed limit is not posted at 25. Is there a map or some sort of data available so we can see what those streets are?
There is. I'm unsure if it's publicly available. We can definitely get that to you. So very rough. There are about 5,000 local streets in Raleigh. We have addressed 3,000 of them. So we're over 50% of the way, but again, 2,000 is still a lot of streets. I guess twofold. One, if you don't see a speed limit sign, reach out. My team will be happy to start engaging with you and starting that process. Council did, as the second part, council granted us authority to start being proactive and start grabbing sections of the city, because the ultimate goal is to have all local streets at 25 or 30, depending on some of the context. And we have been trying to formulate that plan, but it is also trying to work into kind of work that into an existing high volume workloads. So those, we want to be proactive, and we're working towards that slowly. But definitely, if you don't see a speed limit sign, reach out. We're happy to start that process for you.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Will. This is awesome stuff. I had one question. I guess you sort of just mentioned overlaying the bike layer when you're looking at project eligibility. In the new active mobility plan, they added 17 miles of neighborhood bikeways too. So is that, I guess you're looking at that, is that considered, or do you plan to consider it in the eligibility thing? Like, hey, this one is on the recommended bikeway. Should we bump it up and go ahead and do it?
Yeah. So going back to that scoring matrix, we look at plans and existing infrastructure, and if you have that, you get more. Because again, if you got two streets that are almost identical, but one has this planned active transportation use, then we should probably prioritize that over the other one. Not saying the other one is deserving. It's just looking at the infrastructure and long-term use. So that is a factor that can bump things up the list. And with that, again, we're trying to develop a way so that when we implement neighborhood bikeways through the active mobility plan, that we're not just putting sharrows and signage on the ground. We want to make sure that we are reducing the speeds and the volumes based on what that plan says. But then also, conversely, whenever we coincidentally have projects on the traffic calming priority list, we're, again, cross-referencing with the same goal. So there's a lot of overlap with that. It's just how we get to that final project prioritization. It takes the route that it takes.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. I'm also curious, in the Vision Zero work session that City Council had, Councilor Melton mentioned something that stuck with me about having a lot of local groups who are really interested in tactical urbanism and helping put volunteers forward or even materials, stuff like that, to help implement these things. I'm curious, the feasibility of that, if that's something you've considered to help. Obviously, it's great to see the implementation numbers have spiked up a lot, but to maybe stretch that even further. So if you go to the city's website, RaleighNC.gov, type in tactical urbanism, we have a number of avenues to go ahead and do that exist today. So definitely take a look at that if you're interested. There are a number of different ways that you can do that, and potentially some of them, the city has grant programs to assist with some of the, I think it's artwork component. So that is certainly a route that you as a body, you as a citizen, anyone can take up that's active today. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and like I said, thank you very much, Will, for the presentation and for everything that you've been doing all these years on the NTMP program. I think I can easily speak for everybody that everybody certainly appreciates the program and all the good work that has happened so far.
Awesome. Thank you all.
And so moving on, we have an item from Mr. Smith on the comprehensive safety action plan discussion.
I sent a link with the review of the comprehensive safety action plan. I hope you all received it and had a chance to look at it. Mr. Driscoll is going to take that to the council, I think, tomorrow. And they're going to, I guess, take action. And this was one of the things that I feel really strongly about, and I participated in the task force. I went to most of the meetings, not all of them, but it was a really thorough process and very, I think, beneficial to the citizens of the city. And I would like for the commission to endorse this plan and support it. I don't know if we need a motion for that, but I also wanted to talk about it a little bit. The city has a lot of legacy issues when it comes to safety in the right-of-way, especially for cyclists and pedestrians. And this plan, I think, really takes a good look at those issues and how to address them and come up with some procedures for doing it, but also an evaluation process to so they can tell whether it's whether efforts are being successful or not. And I wanted to turn it over to Mr. Shoemaker. He had a couple of extra things to mention about this program.
Yeah, thank you for that. So as Mr. Smith said, Sean Driscoll, Division 0 Manager, will be presenting to City Council after the work session tomorrow, asking for adoption of that plan. This really sets the priority for Division 0, all of the work that they've done, and with the hopeful adoption of the action plan that allows city staff to go and seek grants and federal funding. So without this plan, we can't go seek that. So with the Safe Streets for All, that's been going on for a couple of years, this is the final year of that specific grant opportunity. So getting this plan adopted enables Sean and his team to put forward a lot of these projects that are in that action plan. So really getting this adopted is the first step in opening hopefully a lot of doors for alternate funding sources that aren't just local dollars, that really stretch our CIP budgets and allow us to do more in more places to help more people. So we're excited that all of his work, it's been nearly a 2-year process to get this point, is finally reaching that council decision point. We're excited to see where this takes us.
And I'd just add that we would have gotten a presentation on this from Sean had we not had a canceled meeting. So that's the reason why he didn't come here to present it to us. I think he's committed to come here and present it to us after the fact. But because it's going to the council tomorrow, I would like for us to vote on endorsing the CSAP so that he can carry that with him when he goes to the council.
Would you like to make a motion?
So I'd like to move that the commission endorse the comprehensive safety action plan that's being presented to the council tomorrow.
Second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion before we vote? I think, well, at least everybody that's been on BPAC for a little bit, I think we've seen this plan in multiple iterations and have heard from Mr. Driscoll and related staff about the Vision Zero plan. So, I agree with everything that was said. I mean, I feel like this is a very good plan and a good step in the right direction. Okay, so all in favor of endorsing the plan for approval by council? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No? Okay. And so now we'll move on to reports. Move on to reports. Chair's report, I don't I don't think I have anything that hasn't been covered other places. Like we mentioned, we've sort of been a little hit or miss on our attendance here with different things that have come up. We'll move on to the planning committee that has one pending item on the resurfacing.
Yes, Commissioner Dunn and I did meet with Mr. Shoemaker and Ms. Godwin to discuss sort of the resurfacing updates at Whitaker Mill for a portion. And it was a good discussion. We understand
Lassiter Mill.
Lassiter Mill.
Yeah.
I was like, Lassiter Mill.
Right.
And so we did discuss those updates and talk about the sort of sequencing of the resurfacing and sort of where they're having pinch points due to turning into neighborhood. But it sounds like we talked through the points and agree with sort of the methods that they're taking and are looking forward to those updates. And it sort of coincides with the updated Greenway connection in that area. So it's a good crossover there. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, no, nothing to add. Really just wanted to second seems like a great opportunity where parks and transportation are coming together to really improve that corridor. And even though there's those difficulties with the pinch points at a few of the intersections, even considering that, like really adding in the buffered bike lane with concrete curb to come later will significantly improve the safety and the comfort of biking up that hill and down that hill.
Okay. Policy committee, there's no report. Outreach, I assume that there's no report. And then we'll move on to staff reports.
Actually, sorry, Chair Caruso. On the subject of outreach committee, I know I'm not on the outreach committee, but we are partnering with the Raleigh Historic Development Commission for a Bike Month historic bike ride. I believe it's May 2nd. So I would encourage all of you, if you're into history and into bikes like I am, I'll be there. Come join.
Okay.
And to second Mr. Dunn's comments, I will be there as well. I think several BPAC members have volunteered to help with the ride that day, so looking forward to that. There's also a list of several Bike Month activities happening throughout the city on our website. If you just go to raleighnc.gov, search Bike Month, you can access that information there. And then I just had one more announcement. I've had some conversations with several of you, but I am transitioning to a new role with the city and going to be supporting BPAC through May. But then after that, Mr. Shoemaker will be taking on as the primary staff liaison, and I'm sure he'll have some additional help after that point. So I will be remaining with transportation, but I'm so appreciative of the support of active mobility and of just the work that we've been able to do together over the last really 6 years. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you very much. We'll make sure to celebrate next month. Okay, and then we'll move on to board comments, general board comments. Is there anything that hasn't been addressed already?
I have one thing. I also sent out last month a letter that I sent to the mayor and the council concerning the street markings program in the department. And in support of it, I hope you had a chance to read it. I would encourage each commissioner to fashion a letter along those lines in support of it. And I don't know if it's something that the commission at the right moment would endorse also. I don't know what the right time is to do that. I'm looking to staff to let us know when it's going to come up for consideration of the council so we can show our support as a commission.
I had one quick thing, and I promise I was going to bring this up before it already came up in Mr. Griffin's presentation, but I just wanted maybe just a quick couple sentence update from staff on the situation at Whitaker Mill and Atlantic. I know we had talked about it in the past. I just was curious where things stand. I had the unique pleasure of both walking and biking through that area recently, and it just got it back fresh in my mind.
And so our traffic engineering, and I guess more specifically the Vision Zero team, is working to get crosswalks and ped heads and landings and all those things designed for implementation. So that is still actively moving forward to improve that crossing. I don't know if we have a implementation timeline or date, but we are actively working to improve that crossing.
Thank you.
Any other board comments? Okay, any upcoming events beyond the ones that were mentioned? No? Okay, and it says our next meeting will be on May 18th, but are we doing normally we do the retreat in May. I
Yes.
don't remember what we landed on there.
That's a placeholder date, but we will talk about resetting that to meet the needs of everybody's schedule for the retreat.
Okay. So for May, we'll plan on having the retreat, date and time to be announced, but I think normally we do it on a Friday, but we'll work on getting that set up for May, and we'll coordinate with everybody. And so with that, that's all of our items, and with 1 minute to spare, we are adjourned.